Chess YouTube, what is happening? This right here might be the greatest game of chess that Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja have ever played versus each other. It's only move 16, and Magnus Carlsen, what does he do? He sacks the bishop, the clean bishop sack out of nowhere. You do not want to miss this game. It is 2:30 on a Monday night, 2:30 a.m. I should be asleep, but this game is giving me shivers down my spine. I just can't not cover this game for you guys right here, right now. In the game, Alireza opens 1e4, best by test, and Magnus, he busts out the Caro-Kann defense. All right, d4, d5. Black counterattacking in the center. And which line will white go for? Well, he goes e5 and then h4, the tall variation. Named after the legendary grandmaster Mikhail Tal. What is white's idea? It's very simple. He's going h4, threatening g4, and if bishop g6, h5, trying to trap the bishop. It's the Noah's Ark trap, and what will black do about it? Well, here, the main move for black, by far, really the only move black plays these days, is the move h5, stopping the alpha 0 h pawn in its tracks. But Magnus, oh no, he does not go for it. Instead, the move here is the Caro-Kann move c5, counterattacking on the queen side. But this move is completely dubious. Here, Alireza, the fashion diva, he takes on c5 and wins the free pawn. Now Magnus, knight c6, attacking on e5. Of course, d4 is no longer on d4, and therefore it does not defend e5. So Magnus here, he simply has to attack e5 as quickly as humanly possible. But Alireza, bishop b5, pins the knight on c6 to the king on the e8 square. But Magnus, he's not done. Queen c7, increasing the pressure, but now knight f3 also defends on e5. All right, Magnus, e6. Instead, switching gears and counterattacking on c5. Now, Alireza, bishop e3, defends. And for now, Alireza, he's got everything defended. e5 is defended as that knight on c6 is pinned by the bishop to the king, and beyond that, c5 also being supported, meaning so far Alireza is simply up a clean pawn in this game. What the heck is Magnus doing? Has he lost his freaking mind? Well, turns out no, he has not. Let's see what happens. All right, black, bishop g4, pinning that knight on f3 to the queen on d1. So he is moving a piece twice in the opening. However, there's a very good reason. Black here piling up pressure on that very weak pawn on e5. In response, knight b to d2 is the move, supporting the knight and therefore indirectly defending the pawn. All right, now here black, knight to h6, intending knight f5. Actually, a very good move in this pawn structure. And now here, Alireza, he's got to attack fast. The move here for white is going to be c4, immediately pouncing on the queen side. Instead, he plays a sort of typical move in these sort of structures. The move is c3, the point being the pawn on c3. It supports the future b4 advance. It also supports a bishop on d4 where it would be defended. However, overall, it's a little bit too slow, and black here, despite being down a pawn, is slowly but surely getting a very, very good position. The knight jumps in, knight to f5, and suddenly, look at all of the black pieces. The queen and the knight attacking e5, the other knight being a menace, attacking the bishop on e3, the bishop pinning the knight to the queen. Everything in the black position so far is just working wonderfully. All right, Alireza, bishop d4. He tries to hold it all together, but now black, bishop e7, simply intending short castling, but also increasing the pressure on the weak pawn on h4. Again, every piece for Magnus here is working together in perfect symphony. All right, now here, Alireza, queen to a4. The queen slides out. Another idea of the c3 advance played earlier in the game. The queen being very active, pressuring the knight, and so on. But black here, Magnus, he's staying cool, calm, and collected like the goat that he is. Here he simply castles kingside, getting his king away from the center. Now, Alireza, he takes on c6. Black takes back, and then knight to h2, dropping back with the knight and pressuring the bishop. And this is where things get really, really good. If you made it this far, oh boy, you are in for a treat. All right, black here, he trades on d4. Knight takes d4, queen takes, and then bishop to f5. But the bishop is at risk of being trapped in this game. Here, Alireza, the move is g4, and look at this. If the bishop goes back, h5 hits the bishop again. If it goes forward, f3 hits it. If it goes to, say, c2, b3 traps the bishop, and then rook c1 wins it. Magnus Carlsen, what have you done? You've lost the bishop. Or has he? Well, turns out, yes, he has. But Magnus has an idea in store for us. He plays the move f6, counterattacking on e5, giving up the bishop in return for the monstrous pawn center. Here, Alireza, he takes the bishop, g takes f5, but black takes back on e5 with the pawn. F takes e5, attacking the queen, but also opening up the attack of the rook on the pawn. Here, Alireza, he slides back, queen to e3, but now rook takes f5, and get a load of this. Here, Alireza, he's up, let's see, a minor piece for one pawn. But Magnus, this guy is down but not out. He's got 3 pawns in the center uncontested, and he may have plans including simply pushing those pawns down the board. And just as importantly, where is white's king going to go? It can't go to the king side. Well, it can, but it's suicide. And the queen side, that is also not exactly a safe haven. Here, Alireza, he does decide to castle queenside. Long castles is the move, the best move, but of course, the king will not feel entirely safe on the queen side. Always this game getting good. All right, rook a to f8 is the move, doubling up pressure on the f-file. Here, Alireza f3 is the move, the pawn being supported by both of these knights on h2, on d2, and so on. Now here, black, he picks up the free pawn on h4, bishop takes h4, but the problem with this move, it opens up the h-file for the other rook, white having the open h-file, the open g-file. What more could you want in an attack against the black king? All right, Alireza, rook dg1. This guy knows what he's doing, but Magnus, queen to e7, he defends the bishop and attacks c5 with one single move. Now, knight g4. The knight jumps up. White is pressuring e5. In response, bishop g5. The bishop slides back and attacks the queen on the e3 square. Now, we have queen to e2. The queen slides back, but this gives up the defense of the pawn on c5. Queen e2 is met by queen takes c5, and get a load of this. The 4 uncontested pawns in the center. Alireza, what are you doing? You're giving Magnus everything he wants here. Those beautiful pawns, they are going to push down the board faster than you could believe. All right, here, Alireza, king to b1 is the move. Trying to slide his king away to safety. Trying to get out of the pin on the knight, but it turns out this is just too slow. Instead, knight takes e5 is the move. You got to jump in. You got to play the high energy knight move here. None of this king b1 stuff. That is just too slow. Here, bishop f4 defends the pawn permanently. White is going to have a much harder time trying to win that pawn on the e5 square. In response, knight b3 attacks the queen, drives it back, queen to e7. Now knight to f2. White trying to reorganize the pieces, trying to shuffle around, but black here, he initiates the attack. c5, here we go. Magnus Carlsen, once you play this move, you are all in on the queen side. The pawn on d5 has less defense. You are committed to attacking here. All right, white, c4, gaining space and blockading the pawn. And here, instead of d4, that would be strategic suicide. That would give white the e4 square for his knight, and white would be crushing. Instead of that, the move for black, you guessed it, the alpha 0 pawn sack, a5, threatening a4. Here we go. The knight wins the pawn, but then queen to a7. The queen slides over, attacks the knight. The threat now is simply rook to a8, doubling up pressure on the a-file. The knight goes back to b3, knight b3, but then rook to a8 comes in anyway. a3 defends, but then queen to b6. Magnus Carlsen is relentless, attacking the newly hanging knight on the b3 square. King to a2, the king jumps up, makes a little mini fortress on the queen side, but is it enough? Magnus, rook b8, again further increasing the pressure and forcing a response from the fashion diva himself. In response, queen c2 defends and pressures the rook on the f5 square at least a little bit. Now, bishop to e3. The bishop slides down, pins the knight on f2 to the rook on the g1 square, and also threatens ideas like bishop d4 later. Now, rook g2 is the move. getting out of the pin and defending along the second rank. But now e4, Magnus Carlsen, he's willing to give up just unthinkable amounts of material to get the attack going. Here, Alireza, how do you defend against the mounting pressure? Obviously, if you capture on e4, that would just open up more lines of attack for black. Therefore, instead, you gotta move the knight. Well, turns out here, the best move is knight d1, retreating, pressuring the bishop, and also defending the king side like this. Instead, knight g4 is the move, a little more active, but also a little riskier. Here, Magnus, e takes f3 is the move. He has a pass pawn on the f3 square, which is threatening to go down the board like this. In response, rook g to h2. The rook slides over and pressures h7. Look at the pressure on the h7 square. What can black possibly do to stop it? Well, he does nothing. Magnus, he doesn't defend. Oh no, in chess, Magnus do not defend. Instead, he attacked. D takes c4, winning the pawn, threatening the knight, and trying to distract Alireza on the queen side. In response here, where do you move that knight? Of course, you can take on c4 with the queen, but then rook to f4 forks the queen and the knight, and black wins the game. Therefore, what do you do about this knight? Well, it turns out the only good move here, you know what? Good time for a puzzle. If you like puzzles, pause the video and try to figure out what white is supposed to do right here, right now. This is a brilliant puzzle. And if you find the solution, go and comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Here, the winning move for white, or at least the move to keep the advantage, is going to be the unthinkable knight to a5. Instead, in the game, and by the way, the idea is if the queen takes the knight, you win the bishop on the e3 square. Instead, in the game, knight to a1 was chosen with one simple mistake. Magnus Carlsen, he begins to take over in this game. Bishop to d4, pressures the weak pawn on b2. Look at all of the black pieces lining up with the pawn on b2. In response, rook c1. The rook slides over. Then f2, pushing the pawn down the board again. In response, rook b1 defends b2. Now here, black finally promotes the pawn, funnily enough. f1 promotes to a queen and forces the exchange of white's rook. Black winning the rook, winning material. Things are not looking good for white, to say the least. Here, white, queen takes h7. Alireza, he's down but not out. He's trying to make something happen in this truly insane blitz game. Black down to simply 35 seconds left on the clock. But white only 5.4 seconds. It's getting ugly. All right, king to f7. Queen c2. The queen slides back. King to e7. It's in time pressure. Anything can happen here. All right, rook to e2. The rook slides over. Now, Magnus, he can do whatever he wants here. He can go c3. He can go queen to a6. Whatever he wants, he can play. But here, Magnus says, you know what? Let's simplify to a winning endgame. Queen takes b2 is the move. Trading the queen for the pawn. Here's how it goes. Queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, and then finally king takes. Let's slow down and do inventory. Everything was just traded off, and in the end, what do we have right here? Well, black has the rook, and not one extra pawn, not two extra pawns, but three extra pawns versus the two minor pieces of white. The rook and the 3 pawns is worth far more than those 2 minor pieces, and let's see how Magnus does from here. All right, rook to f4 is the move, sliding up with the rook, attacking the knight. But this is a little bit inaccurate, and white already is fighting back in this game, in the endgame. Knight to e3 is the move, then g5. The passed pawn must be pushed. If you don't know, in the endgame, your number 1, number 2, and number 7 priority is get a passed pawn and push it down the board as quickly as possible. From here, a4 is the move. White does the same, pushing his pawn. It is now an all-out race. g4, a5, both sides pushing. King d7, the king entering the square of the pawn. If you don't know that, if your king's inside this imaginary diagonal square, the king can defend on the queening square. If not, it cannot. Now, king c3 attacks the pawns. g3, black is cooking. Knight a to c2, king c6, a6, king b6, knight to a3, and then king takes a6, winning the pawn. And from here, black is just going to clean up. Knight a takes c4, rook f2, sliding down, 95, g2, knight takes, rook takes, and in this position, Alireza Firouzja, he simply resigns on the spot to Magnus Carlsen. There's nothing he can do to stop black, as black will defend one, if not two of these pawns, and the rook plus the 2 pawns is just too much for the knight. Wow, what an unbelievable game between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja. By the way, in the September 2024 Blitz game, this was truly wild stuff. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please go ahead and smash that YouTube like button and comment down below what you thought. And by the way, if you want to join my free community, I just dropped a comprehensive guide on the London opening for white, and I'm working on new courses for black as we speak. Literally, if you want a free opening guide covering everything about the London, including PGN files, downloadable files, explanations, everything you could possibly need. And I'm talking literally every major defense from black, literally a complete opening repertoire for white in the London. I've got that plus a bunch of other courses there for you. Check it out. The link is right down below in the description and in the pinned comment. And by the way, I do have 6 spots open in my one-on-one coaching program. 4 are already filled, 6 spots left. If you want to learn directly from me, work with me, have one-on-one sessions with me, and level up your chess, I am a top 1% online chess player, about 2,000 ELO on chess.com. So if you want to reach, whatever goal you have, 1,000 ELO, 1,500, even 2,000 ELO as quickly as possible, link is down below. Schedule a call with me and we'll go from there. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.